Alright, so now we're ready to get started on the body of the robot. And I'm going to start just with a simple square here. And I'm going to give myself 3 subdivisions in each direction. And that's going to break the cube up into kind of a left, middle, and right, or top, middle, bottom, or front, middle, and back kind of thing. And let's see here. I want to make it about... couple meters high. Looks like I'm zoomed out a little farther than I thought I was. So let's see. Let's go for maybe go for 1.5 meters in the X, or excuse me, in the Y, and then kind of a similar amount in the X. And let's make sure that this is centered up now. And then in the Z, we're going to keep it a little bit thinner on the depth. Maybe a little wider than that. So now I'm just going to completely center it up so that we're ready to go. All right, and I'm adding these subdivisions now so that when I taper, I'm assured of having nice, clean divisions for my mesh. Now I could add more subdivisions, and I'm going to need more subdivisions in order to attach pieces, and I'm just going to do those as the need arises, and that way I'm not going to be adding extra subdivisions where I don't need them. I'm just going to keep the model a little bit cleaner. So let's go ahead and drop the tool, and I'll go to polygon mode. We'll add a new linear fall off and go to the scale tool. Make sure that this is facing down the Y, and then I'm just going to taper down the bottom a little bit here. To about 70%. Even that's a little bit much. Let's go 75%. There we go. So we have kind of a little bit of tapering. It'll kind of help add to that kind of lumbering, top-heavy shape. And that should be good and ready to go. Now when we enter P-subs, we notice that, yes, we have these rounded edges. They're getting relatively solidified as opposed to just a straight cube because of the subdivisions that we already have here. But we're also seeing a bunch of boxy chunkiness. Now, this is going to be important both with the edge rounding and in order to keep a nice smooth shape here. Increase the subdivision to level 4. And now I'm going to select each one of these corner edges here. So all the way around. And these are the ones that we're going to want to sharpen and leave the rest of the edges at their default or at 0 weight. And that will allow us to get good smooth transitions between the circular or spherical shapes that are going to be bridged into here and in these shapes that are already here. So let's go ahead and go to our subdivision weight map, Shift W for the vertex map mode, and then make sure that your fall off is off. If you still have the fall off on, it's going to apply the fall off to the shape that you're, or excuse me, to the weight tool here, and then that's not going to give us at all what we want. So I'm going to go up to about 30% on the subdivision level. We may increase this one more subdivision level, and we can look and see what that is, how that will look while the tool is live. And you can see that 30% is going to give me a nice clean subdivision, and then it's not looking much different than the 30% at subdivision level 4. And so this will give us kind of a good preview level. And we can keep our polygon count a little bit lower, and then increasing it to level 5 will give us something good at render time. And we could even, if we look here, go to level 6, and you can see that's not really having much effect on the shape here. So let's back down to level 4 again, and that's going to be a good place to start. All right, so now we need to attach in a sphere or a section of a sphere that will house the eyeball of the robot. Now the first thing that you'll notice is that, one, we only have this one polygon here, so we're going to need to add more subdivisions, and 2, the polygon is really kind of low for an eye and kind of small. So I'm going to set my action center to selection and then move this up, something like that. And you may want to unsubdivide in order to see your placement a little bit better. And that's what I'm going to do here at the moment. So let's move that up just a little bit more, and then I'm going to scale it out and up until I get a relatively square kind of shape here and big enough to give me some border edges for the actual eye when it drops in here. And I'm actually going to need to put in arms too, so some of these edges will need to go up as well. And in this case, I'm going to turn on the symmetry on the X so that I can select each of these edge groups here and then move those up. We're still in local, or excuse me, in selection action center, so I'm not going to disturb the line here. And I'm just going to go up to maybe about there. And then I'm going to leave this, actually here, let's move this one up just a little bit just to kind of balance it. But I'm going to leave the scale on that back the same. So let's go ahead and check and see. Oops, and actually we've caused a little bit of pinching here. So let's back up here. And what we'll have to do if we're getting pinching like this is to actually use the slide tool. So right click on the edges and choose slide and then pull those up. And actually here we can move all the way around the back, but we want to leave the front as is. So let's right click here and then choose slide and move that up. And the same thing here. Now I could just double click on it and then deselect the front, which is going to be a little bit quicker. And then also I'm going to slide here. And we can leave these areas relatively large. There's no need to collapse these areas at all, because if we're going to bridge in other material, having more space is always going to be easier than having less or not enough space. So that will work there. And I'm also, while I'm here, going to go ahead and scale out these sections here in order to make this work a little bit better for where the arms are going to bridge in. The arms are going to be significantly smaller than the eyes, so probably something like that will work pretty nicely. There we go. So now when we go back into P-subs, you can see that really didn't affect my geometry at all. Everything's still clean, rigid, because we used the edge slide there that keeps the line here nice and straight. And now we need some more edges. Now, for creating the additional geometry here, we need to think about what we really need. And for creating the socket for the eye, we don't really need a lot of extra geometry, really just enough to highlight the shape, the round shape, and then to allow it to house a more complex sphere on the inside. So I'm just going to use that 8-sided sphere that we created, and I'm just going to add one poly loop through here and through there, and then that's going to give me something that has, if I check my boundary, 8 sides. Okay. And the way to do that, by the way, in case you missed that, was select the polygons, hold Control, and then you can see that the edge selection changes to boundary. That's a very nice, quick way to check the boundary edges that you're going to have on something that you will eventually need to bridge in. And I'm probably going to use the same sphere through here, so I'm just going to go ahead and add in an extra loop slice down the middle there as well. So that's ready, and now we can go ahead and look at how to get the actual model in here. I've gone ahead over here in the layout tab. You can see I've created a LACY folder in my mesh presets, and I've got a 1 meter sphere for 12, 16, 24, and then the 8 polygon meshes. So I've got each of those, and then zoom this up so you can see better. It's just a screen cap of each of these so that you can get a quick read on the sphere. If the title doesn't do it for you. And you get that in there just by right-clicking and choosing Replace Icon with Image File, and then I just chose the screenshot of the correct one. So let's go ahead and I'm going to drop in this 8-sided sphere here, and we're not going to need it just yet, so I'm actually going to take it out of the folder that it comes in, and so let's go ahead and delete that folder. And then let's go back to the mesh here, and let's hide the sphere for a minute while we continue to prep this. Now, I'm going to be doing multiple things with this section here, so it's going to be important to be able to snap things right into this exact place. And in order to do that more easily, I'm actually going to realign my work plane and then place a locator right in the middle of this, this mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and align work plane to selection, and then in the Setup tab, I'm going to hop over here and add a locator, and then select that locator, and in Setup I want to set this to work plane position, and that's going to drop it right in there. Now I can choose to set this also to the work plane rotation, and it looks like it works just right here, so that's not giving me any problems. Occasionally what you'll get when you align something to the work plane rotation is sometimes you'll get something just a little bit off because the work plane didn't align exactly based on symmetry or something like that. So it's a good idea to check that rotational alignment before applying it and then running off and doing every other thing here. So let's go ahead and go back to my quad view though, and you can see that this is actually very nicely aligned up and down, left, right, so we're good to go. And I can go ahead and reset my work plane and drop the tool, and I'm going to take this locator here and I'm going to rename it eye base, just so I know that I've got the basis for the eye there, and I can very easily at any point put something in there. So for example, if I wanted to do something like get this sphere perfectly aligned with that, I could take the sphere and parent it to it, and then zero out the position and rotation. So let's just put in 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and there we go. So now I can go ahead and scale this down. I'm going to make sure I'm in polygon mode, and I'm going to scale this down. Oops, turn off symmetry, and we'll scale this down to where it fits. And I think something about like that will work. I may want to move this top edge up just a little bit, and let's see where it lies. Let's unsubdivide this mesh here. We can see we have a little bit of daylight, but probably not too much, at least for my tastes. So what I'm going to do is go to the vertex here and right click on it and choose slide, and make sure that your mode on the slide is set to linear, and then that will give you the ability to just pull that straight up along that edge. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. Right click and choose slide and just pull that down. That's just going to give me a little bit more space there. And I'm also going to do this on the left and right, but since those are symmetrical, let's go ahead and turn on symmetry, and that will speed us up here. So slide and just drag that the right direction, and now I've got something good to bridge into. So I'm going to use this eye actually for a couple of different things. So in order to keep this kind of pristine, I'm going to take it and duplicate it. And this is the kind of thing that you'll do often in Photoshop, where if you want to work on a layer and you're not sure about the adjustments that you're going to make, duplicate the layer and then go on and you can make your adjustments, and you still have that kind of master layer underneath. And I'm going to use this here for that. So I'm going to rename this one eye master, and that's just going to again keep me organized here. And this one is actually going to become the socket. So I'm going to rename this one eye socket. And it helps if you can spell. There we go. So eye socket is all ready to go. And now I'm going to need to add in one extra edge, because what I'd like to have is a little bit of a lip along the edge here. And I don't want that lip to be as high. Let's go to edge mode here. I don't want the lip to be as high off the surface as this one here. I want it to be closer down to the base here and just kind of give a little bit of a ridge. So I'm going to select here and do a loop slice, and I'm going to make sure that I preserve curvature right here. And this is going to cause a little bit of an issue with the shape of the mesh, but not a real severe one, and we'll have to just adjust our scale to correct it. So let's go for right about there. Okay, and now we have, the nice thing is that we have the guide of our background, that master sphere, still here, that will allow me to scale this. So let's turn off symmetry. Again, go to the scale tool, and I'm just going to scale this down a bit and grab my inside edge here and scale that one also down just a little bit. And actually the back side of here is going to be deleted eventually, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I'll just double check this one and make sure that it is scaled. It looks like it's actually okay. We can zoom in here and check. That one looks like it's all right. Looks like maybe you have a little bit more adjustment here. I should zoom in a little closer in order to get this. Now, one trick you can do is, since you can only zoom in so far and lose your handles, make sure that you scale in either a perspective or an orthographic viewport, and then look at the other one for your guide here. And let's also actually increase our subdivision level. Yes, that's going to make life a little easier as far as seeing how this works. So I'm going to go to about there. That'll work. And this one, as I scale this one out, there is a little bit of a seesawing that will happen. You can go back and forth between a couple of subdivision or a couple of different edges when you're working with a sub-D model like this. So you have to be mindful of that. And I'm actually going to scale the next one in just so that I can help maintain that. And this is why we made one that was relatively right on at the beginning. Otherwise, we'd have a whole lot more adjustment to make here and not just kind of these little minor adjustments. So this is going to snap in 0.5% increments. That may not be enough. So keep an eye on it. If you're ever teeter-tottering back and forth between two snap levels for a scale tool, just remember that you can go in and manually enter smaller increments over in the numerical input fields. And let's see, I'm also going to adjust this one here just to kind of help the contour out a little bit. I think that's going to be a pretty good version there. So what I'm going to do next is select everything all the way back to here and cut it out. And you can see now we're getting still a nice clean read on that. And then I'm going to do two things here. The first thing that I'm going to do is create another interior piece here. And the reason that I'm going to do that is I want to get an exact read on the scale. Excuse me. I want to be able to get this exactly the right scale from the inside and the outside, and I want to be able to match the interior sphere when I put that inside of the socket. So keeping good measurements is going to be really important. So I'm going to scale this. Actually, sorry. I'm going to copy it first, and then flip it, and then use the scale tool. And I'm going to set my action center to parent because we've got that parent base there, and that's where this is all located. So I'm going to pull this in. I don't want to go very far. I don't want this to be a very thick lip, maybe about 5%. And then let's go ahead and hide the master and paste back in the exterior. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide our mesh for a second. And we can see that now if I take this section here and I select up to here and cut that, this section now, this edge, will bridge onto the main mesh, which I can unhide again. And then these two sections, this one and this one, will bridge together. So let's go ahead and bridge those together to start. Let's go ahead and bridge. And I'm not going to do any edge weighting or anything at the moment. We're just going to wait on that. Let's go back now to our main mesh here, and I'm going to cut that out. And then just for the moment, I'm going to leave everything in this socket layer. So I'm just going to copy what's in there and hide the layer, and then paste that into the actual socket. Now I can select this, and then get the boundary on both of them. And then this is ready to bridge together. So go ahead and bridge and click, and there we go. We've got a nice socket here with a little bit of a lip coming out. And now the last thing that I'll do is go through and add a couple of edge weights. I'm actually going to weight all three of these edge loops the same so that I get kind of a nice uniform flow. So Shift W, and again I'm going to go with the 30%. I think that works pretty nicely. We can check always and see how it's going to look a little bit lower, but I think that 20% it's going to be too soft. Although we can always go over here and have a look and see. Let's again turn off our wireframes so that you get a better read on the model. And I'm going to pull this back up now to 30%. And if it looks just a tiny bit lumpy, that's okay, because we're going to be increasing the subdivision level at render time. So again, we can check here at level 5 And yeah, that looks really nice at level 5. So I'm just going to back it down to level 4. And there we go. We have a nice place for the eye to fit in. Now, if I unhide the eye, we're going to have an initial problem right here, and that's that we really don't have enough space. So let's go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to make a new mesh layer here that I'm also going to put inside the base, and I'm going to just zero everything out in it again and paste in this eye here. So then I'm going to select this, go to my scale tool, which is still set to the parent, and we're going to go down to 95%. And this isn't going to be the one that will be the finished eye, but it will give us an idea of how it's going to fit into the socket. And you can see we have a little bit of peeling away happening here, so we may need to adjust the scale just slightly. But for now, that will work. We're actually going to need some space for the eyelids to fit in there, so that's all right. So in the next video, we'll have a look at adding in the eyelids and creating some mechanisms so that those can open and close and they can blink, and that will help us as we go along in the modeling process to see how things are working as we model. So we'll set up a little bit of just very light rigs as we go. Thanks, and I will see you in the next video.